After the last visitor leaves Graceland, the rooms relax like shoulders. Dust settles, curtains hush against the glass, and the piano in Elvis's music room keeps a silence so polished it could be a mirror. There is a lamp with a cream shade and a bluish tint to the light. Staff call it Elvis's blue lamp because he liked it in the quiet hours when the house became a sanctuary of notes not yet sung. One warm night, a security guard, careful, kind, and respectful of rules, found the blue lamp glowing, though he was sure he'd left it off. The air smelled faintly of cologne and clean leather, the ghost of a stage jacket returning home. On the piano bench rested a single guitar pick, white and pearly, with EP scratched by a restless thumbnail. The guard stood with his clipboard against his chest and said, gently, "Mr. Presley." A low sympathetic rose from the piano's strings, the way an instrument answers a vibration in the room. The guard didn't startle, he felt, instead, a calm attention, like a friend leaning forward to hear better. He set the pick exactly where he'd found it. The blue lamp softened, and then brightened once, like a nod you feel more than see. "Sleep well, sir," the guard whispered. The music room held still. The lamp kept its halo, and somewhere in the background, just barely a breath of a melody, the first 5 notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love," not a performance. A memory stretching its legs. In the morning, the pick had vanished, as if returned to a pocket never far from the music. Since then, on certain nights, when the Elvis Presley blue lamp shines by itself, the piano gives back those same 5 notes, a lullaby to the house that keeps his stories like treasures in velvet. Story 2. Highway 51. Elvis and the Nurse at 2:17 a.m. Night owns long stretches of Highway 51 the way a patient song owns its chorus. At 2:17 a.m., a nurse drives home with a paper cup of coffee cooling between the seats and the hospital still clinging to her like fluorescent dust. She reaches for the radio and finds only static. The road is a ribbon, the ditches are dark bowls, and the stars seem content to watch. In her rear view, a low car emerges, sleek, deliberate, familiar the way a voice is familiar before you know its name. Soon it glides beside her, keeping the exact speed of her weary courage. The dashboard light outlines a profile she recognizes from stamps and posters, photographs and family stories, the cheekbones, the jawline, the arch of hair. Elvis Presley in a midnight car that belongs to both yesterday and now. Her radio dead moments ago clicks alive to a station, finds by day. The DJ's voice is soft as a Sunday kitchen. "This next one's for people trying to make it home," he says. And the guitar that follows sounds like the warmth, the center of a good memory. Elvis taps the wheel with 2 fingers, and the nurse's heart slows into rhythm, with the lane lines sliding by. They ride like that 4 miles, her courage keeping time with his quiet company. Near the cotton gin, the road curves, and his taillights blink once goodnight and Godspeed. Then, the lane ahead empties gently, as if a page had been turned. The nurse pulls into the hospital lot out of habit. She doesn't need to go in. She just sits with the engine off, watching the radio glow for 3 more seconds before going dark. She smiles. She has what she needs to get home now. People say Elvis drives that stretch when you're almost too tired to cross the last mile alone. Story 3. Elvis and the After Midnight radio booth. In a cramped Memphis booth with foam on the walls and a red-on-air bulb with a little scratch on its glass, a student board up lines up tracks for the graveyard shift. The playlist software freezes. The turntable refuses to turn. The kid leans back, listens to the static, and worries about the silence stretching too long across the city. Then the room rearranges itself around a warm baritone laugh. "Mind if I spin a couple?" asks a voice that sounds like stage lights and backstage corridors, like jokes whispered at the side door of a studio. The meters jump, though no track is cued. The kid's hands hover above the board. He doesn't touch a thing. Gospel hum fills the air. Hand claps just behind the beat, the echo of a small room with a big heart. Between songs, The same voice, Elvis Presley, with all the years friendly, and it tells a story about a stagehand named Red who could mend a cable with a pocket knife and a wink, about how the Graceland kitchen always smelled best after midnight. Callers whisper, "Who is that?" as if speaking too loudly might scare away what they cannot explain. At 12:24, the studio door clicks softly, as if someone late to the shift tried the handle but decided not to interrupt. "All right then," Elvis says, thanking the kid without saying his name, and the board lights level out. The software stirs and returns to its job, as though nothing unusual happened. In the morning, under mic 2, the kid finds a sugar packet, folded into a triangle exactly the way he's seen old photos of Elvis folding notes, so they wouldn't blow away. He keeps it in the fader slot like a talisman. And on certain nights, the on-air bulb glows the tiniest shade warmer than before. Story 4. The Chalk X at Sun Studio, and Elvis steps in. Tourists drift through Sun Studio with reverence, pausing at the Chalk X on the floor that marks where Elvis Presley once stood. Late one afternoon, after the group moves on, a retired teacher lingers by the microphone. The air has a June electricity, and the walls hold the memory of laughter like lightly strummed strings. "All right," says a voice low and companionable, the syllables slipping out like a backstage grin. The mic stand tilts, not theatrically, but thoughtfully, as if a chest leaned in and found a comfortable distance. A shoe taps once. The teacher's own feet find the rhythm without moving. Light brightens in the corners, as though harmony itself had come to stand nearby. No track plays, no speaker hums, yet the room gathers harmonies, like relatives arriving through different doors at exactly the right time. The teacher presses her palm to her heart, and only thinks the words "Thank you, Elvis," not daring to say them. When the guide's voice and the shuffle of shoes return, the mic has turned a whisper closer to the Chalk X. The teacher sees, down near the scuff marks, a second X, faint and luminous, drawn not in chalk, but in light. It won't be in any photograph. It's there only for those who need to see where to stand when they feel called to sing. Story 5. The Cottonwood, the Gate, and Elvis's Yes. Across from Graceland's music note gate stands a cottonwood tree, tilted and listening. A traveller arrives at dusk with doubts too heavy to carry through another night. He presses a faded ticket stub into the ironwork and asks aloud, unashamed, "Elvis Presley, did I miss the road I was meant to take?" The cottonwood lets go of a single leaf. It slides, not falls, across the gate and makes the softest chime against a metal note. Beyond the stones, a porch light flicks on 1, 2, 3, then gone, as if the house had breathed yes and returned to its dreaming. The traveller laughs, surprised at the kindness of the moment, and wipes his eyes without embarrassment. In the morning, a groundskeeper who understands that some things are offerings, not litter, finds the stub and tucks it into his wallet beside a photo of his granddaughter. That evening, when the breeze moves through, the gate sings a thin chord that resolves into the beginning of Love Me Tender. If you stand without fidgeting, you can hear Elvis breathe on the last note. It isn't a word, it's a promise shaped like one. Story 6. Elvis on Audubon Drive, listening from the hall. Before Graceland, there was the house on Audubon Drive, modest, hopeful, painted with a kind of care that always shows if you look. A librarian on sabbatical rents it for a month, while she reads old clippings and drinks iced tea. She tapes index cards along the hallway to plot her research. The cards never fall, even when the air conditioner huffs and the ductwork sighs. At night, she pours tea in the kitchen and hears from the hallway a soft scuff, then another, like a man pacing while he decides where to put the bridge of a song. She speaks to the air in a librarian's hush. "Elvis Presley, if that's you, keep me honest, keep me brave." The house answers with small temperatures, a pocket of warm air by the telephone shelf, a cool square near the door, as if Elvis is leaning against the wall in one place, then crossing his arms in another, listening with his whole attention. Once, in the quietest hour, the hallway light flickers. She finds a handwritten card she doesn't remember writing. Tell it plain, the handwriting is hers. But the discipline feels borrowed from a singer who learned how to make a microphone tell the truth. When she leaves at month's end, she takes down her cards and finds, on the very last piece of tape, a single dark hair pompadour black, styled by time. She places it in a little envelope and labels it Hallway Encouragement, courtesy of Elvis Presley. Then stores it in a book about the geometry of harmony. Story 7: The Bel Air Mirror and Elvis's Quiet Good Advice. In a Bel Air apartment, once loved by Elvis Presley, there's a long mirror at the end of a hall. Years later, a production designer renting the place pauses there before sleep, studying the person he is and the work he has still to do. The mirror is neither kind nor cruel. It is an accurate witness. Tonight it carries a little fog at the edges, the kind that rooms get when stories lean in from the other side. Don't rush it, says a man's voice, low and smiling, the exact patience of someone who has learned to wait for the moment when the song sings itself. The designer recognizes it instantly. Elvis. The hallway light steadies. The mirror clears, not to reveal a face, but to reveal better the designer's own. In the air between him and his reflection hangs the feeling of a hand on a shoulder, not weight, not pressure, just permission to take one more breath before deciding. He sleeps well. In the morning, he finds on the dresser a tiny triangle of paper, folded with crisp corners. Inside, a scribble he doesn't remember making 3 dots, like a time signature. And the words wait for the groove. E. He keeps the triangle in his wallet, on set, when a problem tries to push him into a bad decision. He touches the paper and hears Elvis Presley say, "Don't rush it," which is often the difference between a mess and something true. Story 8. Elvis at Friedberg. The barracks halls remember. In Friedberg, the barracks hold memories in their paint names. Laughter, quiet homesickness that taught discipline its gentlest edges. A caretaker doing inventory after hours hears a radio that isn't there. The melody is clean, respectful, American in a way that keeps room for every other nation. He follows the sound into the long corridor, where the echo makes every step a companion. A figure leans in a doorway, the way men do when they're waiting there, turned, shoulders relaxed, as amused, patience worn like a jacket. Even in shadow, the profile is unmistakable. Elvis Presley, the soldier. The caretaker doesn't startle. He salutes without thinking and then laughs at himself for saluting a memory. Elvis nods back, easy, like a sergeant who remembers the weight of the first duffel. The radio that isn't plays a snatch of a gospel tune, and the corridor smells faintly of boot polish and coffee. "You keeping an eye on things?" Elvis asks, and the caretaker answers that he is. "Good," says Elvis. "Then we're both on duty." The lights hum. The inventory sheets stop fluttering, though no window is open. When the caretaker returns to his office, someone has placed a small American flag pin on the edge of his desk, a simple thing, worn at the edges, the clasp a little bent. He wears it on holidays and on ordinary Tuesdays that need a little courage. Story 9. The racquetball echo and Elvis's last note. People speak softly in the racquetball building at Graceland, as if the walls still hold the last volleys of a private game. A night custodian cleans the floor, taking gentle arcs with the mop. From the far end of the court, he hears a short, bright note, not a ball, not a shoe squeak. A piano note, crisp as a star. "Mr. Presley," he asks into the echo. The building answers with a second note, lower, then a third, and though there is no piano here, the custodian realizes the notes belong to a phrase Elvis once favored when humming to himself 3 steps into the heart of a melody. He leans his mop against the wall and stands still. The echo in the building settles around him with a careful embrace. The 3 notes return, and then resolve into silence with meaning, the way certain endings hold the promise of one more chorus if you needed it. On his way out, the custodian finds a sweat towel, folded and clean, set on a bench where no one had been. It smells faintly of laundry soap from another decade. He places it in the small cabinet by the door. Some items you don't launder again. You keep them for remembering how a life full of sound made room for quiet. 2. The racquetball building sleeps, and in that sleep and in the custodians the 3 notes stay, steady and gentle, a heartbeat he can call upon harder days. Story 10. Elvis's Stairway Goodnight at Graceland. The main stairs at Graceland are famous for being seen and not climbed by visitors. At night, they watch the foyer like attentive grandparents. A tour guide who loves the house the way people love cherished stories sometimes lingers after her shift with the foyer lights dimmed to amber. She sits at the bottom stair with a notebook and writes down every kindness she saw that day. The child who whispered thank you to a rhinestone. The couple who held hands past the trophy room. On a rain-polished evening, she hears a footstep at the top of the stairs, just one. Then the softest pause. She looks up, not with fear, but with the feeling you get when your name is spoken gently. The silhouette is slender and sure, and though the light is wrong to see details, she knows the tilt of the head, the way the shoulders hold both mischief and duty. Elvis Presley, she asks without standing. Evening, he says, the syllables like a hand placed lightly on a banister. You took good care today. She smiles and says she tries. I can tell. Elvis answers. The house seems to breathe out, and the rain relaxes on the windows. The guide looks down to write the words, and when she looks up again, the top of the stairs holds only its usual careful darkness. On her seat, she finds a paper triangle folded with exactness. Inside, a tiny sketch of stairs, and an E. She leaves it at the bottom step on late nights. When she does, the foyer lights sometimes choose the perfect shade of amber without her touching a thing. Story 11. The hotel room with the tinfoil windows. There's a story about a hotel room where Elvis Presley once slept with tinfoil on the windows to outsmart the dawn. Years later, a traveling musician takes that room by chance. The tinfoil is long gone, but a faint rectangle on the glass shows where it once clung. The musician has a show the next day, and too many decisions to make. He lies awake, listening to the air conditioner learn its rhythms. Let it come to you, says a voice from the cool square of the window. The musician knows it instantly, Elvis. The room does not answer with anything dramatic. It responds with stillness, so steady the musician realizes he has been breathing like a man running in place. He slows. He thinks of the set list like a conversation instead of a job interview. He sleeps. In the morning, the window holds a make-do patch of light shaped like torn foil, though there's nothing on the glass. He writes the new set list on the hotel notepad and leaves a square of aluminum on the sill, a small offering for the daylight that sometimes needs guidance. On stage that night, he finds his voice standing exactly where it should, as if Elvis Presley himself had patted the mic and said, "Right there, son." Story 12. Elvis in the chapel, folding a paper prayer. A small chapel off a side street in Memphis keeps its doors open until midnight. The pews have the softness that comes from 1,000 ordinary prayers. A woman sits in the back, hands quiet, her trouble as simple and unsolvable as love. The stained glass throws little boats of color across the floor. Someone coughs in the narthex. Someone else lights a candle and changes their mind. Beside her, in the aisle seat, the cushion sinks the barest amount. She doesn't look. She listens to the cushion and the air. "If you're Elvis Presley," she says inside her mind, "sit with me like an old friend would." The cushion answers by staying low. The organ pipes click as the building shifts. The woman breathes, and her breath is answered by the unremarkable miracle of a body calming down. A folded paper triangle appears at the end of the pew. No draft could have blown it there. She unfolds it to find 2 words in tidy block letters, "Burn bright." No signature, but the E in bright knows how to curl at the tail. She tucks it into her pocket and leaves the chapel lighter. The cushion rises carefully after she goes, as though a gentleman had stood and tipped an invisible hat. Story 13. The backstage cough drop. Backstage, every theater shares the same smell, wood, dust, old roses, and frayed gaffer's tape. A young singer stands in the wings, with a dry throat and a heart to fast for the tempo. She coughs once and worries about the next note. On a road case beside her sits a cough drop, still in its wrapper, the old-fashioned kind her grandmother swore by. "Take it," says a voice she's heard on more recordings than she can count. Elvis Presley sounds like a big brother when he's being kind. She takes the drop. The wrapper opens with that tiny mythological crackle. Her mouth cools, and the tightness in her throat loosens. "Thank you, Elvis," she whispers, speaking to air that feels occupied. "You'll do fine," he replies, and the compliment feels honest, not fluffy. After the show, she goes to thank the crew and finds the road case has a single initial scratched into the metal by time or by someone's patient key. It's been there 4 years, they say, from some tour no one can fully place. She carries the wrapper in her wallet for luck and for the memory of being seen. Story 14. Elvis and the Night Custodian. In a museum hallway filled with costumes worn by Elvis Presley, a night custodian cleans fingerprints from the glass with surprising tenderness. He talks to the jumpsuits like co-workers. "Good night, peacock, evening, aloha." He once tried not talking, and the quiet felt wrong. On a night when the building creaks a little more than usual, he pauses under a ceiling vent and hears humming low, content, playful. He hums back. The vent hushes. "You got the touch," says Elvis, not from the vent, exactly, but from the space just above the custodian's shoulder. The custodian answers that he's trying. "I can tell," Elvis says, and the air tastes faintly of spearmint. When the custodian finishes his rounds, he finds a mint wrapper, folded into a neat rectangle on the bench by the trophy room. He doesn't remember unwrapping one. He keeps the wrapper in his locker, taped to the inside of the door, and on nights when the building complains, he taps the wrapper twice. The air settles. The jumpsuits seem to glow a little richer, as if the 700 hand-sewn sequins on a cuff have each decided to reflect a different star. Story 15. The train that hums Love Me Tender. There is a short stretch of track behind a warehouse district where a freight train slows every night to a careful crawl. At that speed, the rails sing. A retired railroad man likes to sit on an overturned bucket and listen as the wheels pass over the seams in the steel. Some nights the rhythm is only rhythm, but some nights he hears a melody wrinkled in among the clacks, the gentlest suggestion of "Love Me Tender." "Evening, Elvis," he says to the dark like it's a neighbor. The train answers by holding the note a little longer, which of course trains cannot do, and yet it does. The man closes his eyes, imagining a young singer riding a different kind of road, learning how to make a microphone trust him. The night holds steady. The train passes. The rails cool, murmuring themselves to sleep. One evening, a brakeman steps down to check a coupler and nods to the retired man. "You hear it?" he asks. The man nods. No need to name it. They tip their caps to Elvis Presley and to the quiet miracle that even iron and weight can sing a lullaby of the night asks the right way. You've walked the halls, the roads, the platforms of memory, where Elvis Presley appears not to frighten, but to accompany a presence that keeps watch, that keeps time, that folds paper into triangles and leaves a pick where you'll find it. If you're still awake, that's all right. If you're asleep, that's all right too. The stories will be here even after the screen goes dark. Good night. And may the house you're in tonight learn the first 5 notes of the song that makes you feel at home.